among the poskim whether glass can become non-kosher altogether because it's not absorbent. Glass is actually not quartz. The problem is that there are many different kinds of glass and coatings and coverings and. Say what?
What do you?
It's above my pay grade. I'm not a kosher.
Rabbi, your shoulders are sacred.
Okay, we're on online live. Hello. Hi, everybody. Good evening. We're on YouTube live, so you can post a link if you are able. That would be great. So what do we study? What did we learn so far in chapter 26?
Learn about sadness.
Yeah. We're talking about the sadness as being the antidote to spiritual progress. Because as long as you're sad, you'll be lazy and sluggish and you won't be able to fight the good fight. You won't be available for the struggle. And when you have two opponents that are wrestling with each other, even if one of them is stronger than the other, if they're sluggish and lazy, they will be defeated easily despite their strength because of the laziness, because of the sluggishness, right? So he's saying emotionally, spiritually, it's the same thing. If the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Ra are fighting it out, and you're trying to make sure that the Yetzer Tov wins, that your godly inclination wins, you're going to fail if you're being sluggish and lazy about it. Then that sluggishness and laziness comes from sadness, and that's why we're spending a couple of chapters here talking about how to root out sadness from your life. So he started with what's the sadness coming from? If the sadness is coming from spiritual shortcomings, he started with if the sadness is coming from material, physical problems in your human life, then you need to remind yourself that everything that comes from Hashem is good, and the good that's obvious and experienced and enjoyable, that kind of good is a relatively low-level kindness from God, because if you can understand it, that's all the evidence you need to know that it's coming from a relatively low level of spirituality, because we don't have the tools to understand high levels of spirituality, high levels of godliness. So a kindness that God gives to us that is from the higher levels of godliness, from God's essence, so to speak. If it comes from way up there, of course it's going to be the kind of thing that we don't understand. How could we possibly comprehend it? So when things that are not going well in your life, when things that are painful in your life happen, if you can keep your eye on the prize and remind yourself of what's going on, you can remember that this is actually a higher form of goodness from God. It's a greater kindness, and a person is willing to forego any kind of benefit or pleasure just to be close to God. That's with matters of physical, human, earthy pleasures or pains.
It doesn't matter how terrible the thing that happened is doing.
Right. The more terrible, the better it is.
Really?
Now, that of course.
So look for terrible things?
Can we put a loophole?
Of course, at the same time, God says, when you have trouble, you have difficulties in your life, you're supposed to pray to God for things to change. So we're not meant to just be complacent with the problems. We're supposed to ask God for better, and we're supposed to strive to make things better and try to fix things and try to find solutions to problems. But in the moment, instead of hating the pain, you don't resent it, you don't suffer over it. Even while you're trying to change it and you're trying to better the situation, you appreciate that God knows what he's doing.
What would someone say that maybe God gave us a little nudge by bringing the bad things to us so we pray?
You call it a nudge?
You could. Well, I was going to say, I was going to argue not with the nudge part, but with the bad part. God doesn't do bad.
Oh. So it's
Right. Bad, by definition, can only mean one thing. bad can only mean that which should not be. That doesn't exist in God's world. So instead of calling it bad things, call it painful things. Then you're right. God gives us nudges with painful things sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was all with regard to material difficulties, physical, human suffering, whatever. Now, what about spiritual challenges and sadness that derives from spiritual shortcomings? That's where he got complicated. He was saying that there's a problem there because you can't use the same answer that you do with the human, earthly or worldly difficulties. Because with the worldly difficulties, the natural human difficulties, you can say it's not really bad. But with spiritual shortcoming, how can you say it's not really bad? God said, don't eat the cheeseburger. And I chose to eat the cheeseburger. And I can console myself by saying it's not so bad. It's a good thing. Only good things happen. That's not true. It's a bad thing. That is a bad thing. It should not have happened. Using the definition we just gave for bad, that's bad. It should not have happened. Not that the result shouldn't have happened, but the choice shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have made that choice. So you can't say that that's good. So now you have to come up with a whole different set of solutions for getting rid of sadness that comes from spiritual shortcoming. So he says, if it's during the time of prayer, during your Torah study or prayer, then of course that's not the time to be thinking about your difficulties, your shortcomings, because that prevents you from serving God joyfully. And serving God with joy is a mitzvah. What about the difficulty or the sadness that you feel over your spiritual shortcomings when you're not in the middle of your Torah study or your prayer, just the middle of the day, your middle of your work, you're doing your business, you're delivering the newspapers or whatever, and suddenly you find yourself all depressed over the fact that you have spiritual shortcomings, that you're not up to snuff spiritually, and you have spiritual failings. So he says now it's a whole other set of problems. What are you doing thinking about this in the middle of your workday? He says the only reason you would have such feelings of remorse and regret over your spiritual shortcomings is if you suddenly had a surge of love for God. To have a surge of love for God, you have to be thinking about God, contemplating deeply and meditating on the greatness of God. Why did these negative thoughts just pop into your head spontaneously? So the Alter Rebbe says the fact that those negative thoughts about your own spiritual shortcomings come to you spontaneously is proof positive that that's coming from the animal instinct and the evil inclination. And it's just there to get you to be sad so that you will go seeking pleasures to indulge in. It's not real. And if you want to test yourself or you want to make sure so what he says is designate a specific time at which time you will think about these thoughts properly and you will contemplate and meditate on them properly, and then you'll be able to fix them, but not spontaneously. Do it planned, do it intentionally. So you know that you're going to say the bedtime Shema. Before you recite the Shema, you'll take 5 minutes and you'll think about all your spiritual shortcomings. He says, if you can do that and have these harsh thoughts about yourself and your spiritual failings, if you can do that intentionally, then that will lead to a genuine, sincere bitterness over your spiritual state, which won't lead to sadness. It will lead to a desire to make change. So from the down feeling, you will come to some benefit, not just wanting to curl up in a ball and ignore the whole world. Now he said something else. He also said, what about if your sad thoughts are not because of any sin that you committed, but they're simply over the fact that you're not a holy person? The way he describes it is, what if you're not sad about having sinned, you're just sad about having had inappropriate thoughts? So last week we talked about you had this idea, the thought crossed your mind to cheat on your taxes, right? Or other such transgressions. Yeah. I didn't want to give you any more examples because I wasn't sure what the kind of imagination you have. I didn't want to introduce any.
Really Wonka of that one.
So the question is, where do these thoughts come from? you're thinking about yourself, you're studying your own spiritual state, and you're thinking to yourself, what's wrong with me? Why do I have the kinds of thoughts that I'm having? There's something really wrong with me. Not thoughts about why would I have sinned the way I did. I didn't sin, but I had thoughts of sin that are just completely inappropriate. And what's wrong with me that I would have such thoughts? So here the Alter Rebbe introduces a whole new idea, which is not only should you not be sad about that, you should actually rejoice.
That means you're Benoni, no?
Not yet. It depends if you pursue the thought or not. But what it does mean is that you have the opportunity to serve Hashem in another way. One of the mitzvahs of the Torah is, we say it in the Shema, the Torah says, and it's actually one of the mitzvahs of the Torah, thou shalt not be led astray by your heart. Yeah. So if your heart never has an inappropriate thought, how will you ever perform that mitzvah?
Are you saying the more inappropriate we think, the better it is?
Yep.
What the conclusion?
I'm going ahead.
Now allow me to remind you that we're talking about spontaneous thoughts, not intentional thoughts, spontaneous ones.
Because you don't really have so much control over what you think anyway.
Because you're surrounded by a world that's a nasty world. And it introduces things into your consciousness that end up coming into your thought, into your conscious thought. You didn't invite it, you didn't want it, it showed up. The question is, what do you do with that thought when it shows up?
You say hello, goodbye.
So the Russia entertains the thought and enjoys the thought. It's a fun thought to have. The Benoni says, I'm not thinking this, and pushes the thought away, rejects the thought.
And the Tzaddik have these random thoughts?
No.
No.
Nice.
Then how does Tzaddik, I guess he has another way of being a time that mitzvah, don't go off.
It's a good question. I was actually thinking the same thing as I was learning this. I was thinking, how does the tzaddik fulfill the mitzvah of? I think it's because the tzaddik
It's just a matter of doing it better every
assists others in their.
I'm sure there is in his level what's appropriate for.
I don't know.
It is a tzaddik born.
I will.
Riches or destitute.
I promise to report back to you right when I become a tzaddik and let you know how it goes. I just don't. I don't have that.
Certificate in the mail yet?
Not yet. I got the AARP mail. I haven't gotten the tzaddik.
So I was thinking, the worst thing when you have bad thoughts is you get mad at yourself for having bad thoughts.
So where does that come from? Where does that anger with yourself or sadness with yourself for having bad thoughts come from? The Alter Rebbe says it's rooted in arrogance
Exactly.
because you just are not willing to admit that you're not that great.
That's right.
Like Golda Meir said, "Don't be so humble. You're not that great."
But people keep themselves,
Yeah.
I guess, in sort of an ego, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm the victim.
Right. So like I said last week, the analogy is the beggar who's begging for a meal because he can't afford to buy himself food, and he's fantasizing about owning a Rolls Royce. He regrets not having a meal. He doesn't regret not having a Rolls Royce. The Rolls Royce is a fantasy. Not having a meal, that's a regret. So the Russia who regrets sinning, that's regret. The Russia who regrets not being a tzaddik, that's fantasizing. That's not regret. You're just not paying attention. You're not being honest with yourself. You're not being real. You're being arrogant. You're getting a little ahead of yourself. So
Yeah. Well, I would also put in fantasizing, idealize, like this is how I should, like this is what I should do.
yeah, it's not even in your realm. It's not in your league.
Yeah.
Fantasy is the distraction from what's actually happening.
So it's imagination about.
Right.
Real versus
Right.
versus ideal.
Right. So he says you should rejoice over the fact that you have this opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of lo tasuru acher levavchem v'acharei nechem. Don't go astray after your eyes and after your heart, which we say in the Shema. That's why you have these thoughts. And don't be upset, even if you realize that this is going to be your lot in life for the rest of your life. This is who you are. This is just going to be. Why? Because that's what Hashem wants from you. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. Did I say beautiful 3 times? Beautiful story. That's 4.
We're gonna have a beautiful concert.
The famous chassid who I mentioned last week, Reb Zusha of Anapoli, somebody once asked him, if you were given the opportunity to trade places with Abraham, the first Jew, what would you do? Would you take it?
No.
So he said, you mean I become Avraham Avinu and Avraham becomes Zusha? Yeah. He said, no, I wouldn't do it. So why not? Get to be Avraham. Avraham, the greatest Jew who ever lived. Huh?
Poor Avraham.
So he says, Zusha was no slouch. Zusha was holding
He's a nomad, no? With his brother?
We were talking about the band.
See, now that would be okay. So they asked him why he wouldn't switch. So he said, because if I switch with Avraham and I become Avram and Avram becomes Zusha, then God is still left with one Avram and one Zusha. So what have we accomplished?
Spittlesma.
Think about this. Think about what he's saying. This is so brilliant. This is so so pure and so wise. What he's saying is, yeah, sure, it's fun for me. I get to be Avraham. But the sum total in God's game, in God's plan is no gain whatsoever. He still has one Avraham and one Zusha. So we've accomplished nothing. It's more fun for me? Yeah, but I'm not here for fun for me. I'm here to serve God. So if you tell me I would have the opportunity to be as great as Abraham, I'd say, yeah, for sure. Because then Hashem has 2 Avrahams and no Zushas. Perfect. But you're not asking me that. You're asking me if I could trade places. Well, there's nothing to be gained by doing that. So why would I? You say, what do you mean there's nothing to be gained? You get to be Avram. We're not talking about me. We're not here for me. I wasn't created for me to become a holy person. I was created to serve God, to give God what he needs. So what benefit is there in me becoming Avram if in place Avram has to become me? Understand the beauty of his answer? The answer is so magnificent. That's essentially what we're learning in this chapter. He's saying, you're upset that you're not a tzaddik? What are you getting upset about? God gave you a job description. Do your job. No, but I want that job. He doesn't need you to do that job. He needs you to do this job. Yeah, but I want that. It's not your world. You didn't create the world. You didn't write the 10 Commandments. This isn't your plan. It's not your kitchen. Good question.
Well,
Anyways, you understand the point? The point is that the Rebbe is saying, if you discover that your lot in life is to struggle with an evil inclination, with negative thoughts, your whole life, so embrace it, rejoice. Now you have a job description. Do it well.
Yeah.
Another interesting, a little bit of a side note, but the famous chassid, Reb Mendel Futterfass, I believe it was, said that it says early on in the Tanya, as quoting from other places,
What did you say
that the
his
Mendel Futterfass,
Futterfass.
he says, it says in Tanya, quoting from other books, that the Yetzer Hara is called Zaken Uksil, old and foolish. He's a fool. He says, I never understood, why is he called a fool? He's very clever. His evil inclination, he's clever, he's sharp, he's shrewd, because they're successful. Why is it called foolish? He says, I didn't understand it until I was sent to Siberia, or sent into the Gulag. He says, the first night I went to sleep in the Gulag, it was terrible. Life in the Gulag is horrible. Torture and mayhem and killing. And anyway, I wake up in the morning, my first morning in the Gulag, and it's freezing, bitter cold. And I think to myself, I got to get up and do my morning Shema. And then I thought, I'm in the Gulag. Just pull the cover over my head and go back to sleep. He says, then it hit me. It hit me. He says, now I know why he's called a fool.
Came all the way.
I came here because I was, spreading Judaism under the communists. They locked me up. They sent me to Siberia. Why did this idiot Yetzer Hara have to come to the Gulag? Who locked him up? Nobody. He came willingly just to get me to sin. He's an idiot. Now I understand why it's called an idiot. The Yetzer Hara is there for a reason. Is there to tempt you. Is there to lead you astray. The Yetzer Hara is there to give you your job description, to give you your marching orders. Now you know what your job is. Your job is to negate the Yetzer Hara and do what the Yetzer Tov wants, to negate the evil inclination, to negate your animal instinct, and to go with your godly instinct. That's your job. If you didn't have the animal instinct, you wouldn't be you. You'd be somebody else. Okay? That's what he's saying. So far, that's what he said in the chapter. You have sadness for multiple reasons. Spiritual-based sadness is not appropriate because rejoice over the fact that you get to serve Hashem in that way. That's where we're up to. And anybody know where we are in this in these
Yes.
books?
Okay.
בשני מיני.
Well, Mishneh.
בשני מיני.
Right. V'shnei minei nachat ruach lefanav yisbarach lemala. Now, I want to tell you something amazing. This is not necessarily, they say that even a broken clock is wrong twice a day. This is not necessarily something that needed to happen. This is by beautiful divine providence. Last week I told you that it's a few weeks ago I told you that it's a good time to get into the Tanya study because we're doing a new subject and all that. And then it was the Rambam's Yortzeit. I told you it's good time to jump in the daily study of Rambam, remember? And then I told you that we started the new cycle of the Rambam study. It's a good time to jump in and start studying Rambam. And then I told you that it was 3 days later and we started actually getting into the chapters of Rambam. It will be a good time to start studying the annual cycle of Rambam. Remember all that? All the different times I encourage you to start studying. So here's another one. That was a passive aggressive.
You also, you forgot to mention we should start studying.
Yeah, I'll mention that soon.
Okay.
You should start studying because what we're going to learn tonight is today's reading of Tanya and tomorrow's reading of Tanya. Happens to be that we're at that point, we're at that part of Tanya perfectly on the right day. So
That's what we planned since we start chapter 1.
exactly, this is all intentional.
All planned.
Point is that we're reading the Tanya for the 24th day of Shavat, and we'll also complete, God willing, the Tanya for the 25th day of Shavat. Tomorrow is the 25th day of Shavat. So tomorrow is the perfect day to start. When you get up in the morning, read the day's Tanya, and you'll know it because you will have learned it tonight, and then you'll have jumped onto the bandwagon and you can continue studying the daily Tanya. You can do it online. You download the app on your phone. There's an app for that. Beautiful.
There's an app to study it?
Beautiful. Yes.
What is it called?
Daily Tanya.
It's called,
Yeah, it's really cool.
I think it's the Chabad.org daily study app or something like that.
Then they have all
Or find it in the-
There's also another app called the Rabbi Gordon app. There's a rabbi on Chabad.org who does the entire Tanya and the entire Chumash
Is also golden?
and the entire Rambam.
Hmm.
He teaches it and he teaches it very well. His nickname was Josh Gordon. So a lot of the Chabad communities around, they have these groups of what they call Joshniks, of people who together study the daily Chumash and the daily Tanya and the daily Rambam. And it's a personal thing for me because this Rabbi Gordon happens to be my uncle, who passed
The
away.
father of Yossi from
Yossi
San
Gordon's
Jose.
father, Nachon.
Nice.
So the grandfather of Rabbi, what's his name?
Mendel.
Mendel, right? Mendel's grandfather, right? Okay. Shnei minei nachas ruach lefanav yisbarach. This is a beautiful analogy. This is really worth appreciating. This idea that some people serve God by not sinning, by not having any negative thoughts and only thinking holy things, but some people serve God by struggling with the animal instinct. The Alter Rebbe says, "Ushnei minei nachas ruach lefanav yisbarach." There are two types of nachas, of pleasure, that God gets. Echad mebitul hasitra achra legamri. One is from completely nullifying and getting rid of, destroying the unholiness in the world. V'eshapcha merido lemesika, and converting, changing bitterness into sweetness. and darkness into light. But that's al yidei tzaddikim. That's the saints do that. The tzaddikim do that. V'hashen is the second kind of pleasure that Hashem has, that God has. Kadiskafya sitra achra, when the sitra achra, the unholiness in the world, is subdued, not destroyed, not nullified, just subdued. Ba'avoida betakfa uvigurasa. I'm sorry, ba'oida betakfa uvigurasa. While it's still in its full strength, it's subdued. Umagbiat makanesher, even while it's trying to raise itself up like an eagle. But umisham ba'yidito Hashem, God pushes it down. B'sarusa dilatata al yedei habenanim, through the initiation, through the inspiration from below by the service of the Beinani, who struggles with it. In other words, when the Beinani, when the non-tzaddik struggles with the unholiness in the world and wins the fight, then in response to that, God subdues the unholiness even more. This is the meaning of the verse that says, make for me delicacies as I like them. This is the story in the Torah where, if you remember, when Jacob steals the blessings from Esav. The story is that Yitzchak, there are three forefathers, right? Three forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So Yitzchak wants to bless his eldest son, Esav. So Esav has a twin brother, Yaakov. Esav is a nasty guy. Yaakov is a good guy. And their father, Yitzchak, wants to bless Esav because he's the older one. Their mother, Rivka, tells Yaakov to go get some goats, and she'll prepare them, make delicacies for their father, and he'll bring it to them. He'll bring them the delicacies, and he'll get the blessings instead. But the interesting thing is, Yitzchak says, make for me delicacies as I like them. Why delicacies? Why do you need two delicacies? We need multiple delicacies in one meal? Why do you need to eat so much? This is a holy person we're talking about, and we're talking about back in the day.
There was a point.
And then Rivka says to Yitzchak, to Yaakov, take 2 goats. What do you need 2 goats for? This is one old man having a meal. He's going to need 2 goats. But
Like
even
only the tongue, so we need the
right, only the tongue.
few.
But even a tongue, you can't eat a whole tongue. But why does he say, make for me delicacies as I like them? So the answer is, V'hu maimer hashkin lebnei Yisrael. This is actually, in Kabbalistic teaching, that statement is actually quoting, or it's a statement from the Shekhinah, from God's presence in this world, speaking to the souls of Israel. As is explained in Zohar. Just like in physical delicacies, by way of analogy, yesh shnei minei ma'adanim, there are 2 different types of delicious foods. One category is sweet and luscious food. And the second one is midvarim charifim or chamutzim, from bitter or sour foods. But they're prepared and cooked really well. To the point where they are delicacies and they restore the soul. They're so delicious that they restore the soul. So there are 2 different kinds of delicious food. You say, what would you like, a candy or a bag of chips? You say, well, why would you ask a person that question? Either sugar is good or salt is good. They can't both be delicious. The answer is no, they're both delicious. Well, how could they both be delicious? They're so different. The answer is, there are 2 different types of pleasure in food. There's the pleasure you get from sweetness, and there's the pleasure you get from well-prepared bitterness. And specifically with the well-prepared bitterness, does it become the kind of food that is so good that it can restore the soul? I was trying to think of an example of it. I couldn't think of an example in food, but if somebody faints, what do you wake them up with?
What?
Somebody's feeling faint. Smelling salts. Try using smelling sugar.
Chocolate.
Smelling sugar.
Yeah, but all
You
the,
walk into a bakery, like,
That's sweet.
yeah.
Right, but
no, but all the bitter foods, all the stuff that's like pickle.
yeah, so there's something about the bitter.
It's like nasty.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Walk into a sauerkrautia, it
When's the-
smells like
Yeah.
sauerkraut.
When's the last time you had a medicine that naturally tasted good?
Mhm.
No comment.
Cannabis,
Honey.
Baby.
Anyway, so the point is,
cannabis is the best medicine with the best flavor.
Better.
so the point is that there are two types of delicacies. There's the delicacy that is sweet and naturally delicious, and then there's the delicacy that's bitter, but if you prepare it properly, it can be even better than the sweet.
So you have savory goat and candied goat.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
meat or anything, really.
And that's what it means when the verse says, "Kol po'al Hashem l'ma'aneu v'gam rasha l'yimra." That's why the verse says that everything Hashem created is for His sake, even the wicked is also for His sake. Pirush, this means sheyoshev midishoy, that the wicked person returns from his wicked ways, v'yaseh harasha lo yoim v'or l'mayla, and he can convert the wickedness into daylight. In other words, holiness, bright light, godliness in the spiritual. When do you do that? Kadiskafia sitra achra, when you can subdue the unholiness, and then the holiness is apparent and rises up to high levels, etc. So don't be disappointed when you feel like you have to struggle with the negative, because struggling with the negative is like the tzaddik who does his work. That's like sweet. There's no challenge. There's nothing that needs to be corrected or fixed. Everything that tzaddik does, God receives sweet pleasure from. But when we struggle with the evil inclination, the pleasure God gets from that is the pleasure of well-prepared, spicy,
So
sour.
where the meal and the tzaddik is the
Salt
dessert.
and vinegar chips.
Where the
Where the meal, the tzaddik is the dessert.
no, we're like the chips, and the tzaddik is like the sugar, the candies, right?
So, question, the word, the word delicacy must have a profounder meaning than just delicacy.
Just means really special foods that give you a lot of pleasure, not just
Like the biblical word is matamim.
Maybe.
Son?
matam means
Matamim.
very,
I
very
think it's
tasty.
like flavorful.
Yeah, very, very tasty foods.
I would go like more with health revitalizing.
But we're talking about pleasure, specifically about the pleasure of the relationship.
But why would,
Yeah,
So what gives you pleasure?
anything that's revitalizing.
Or even things that can kill you, but they feel good. That's
No,
also pleasure.
Well, that's, if you're in your spiritual self.
Right, no, but we're talking about pleasure. Talking specifically about pleasure.
Yeah, but there's different levels.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Like there's the kind of pleasure with that. Imagine you have a parent has two children. One is very obedient and the other is rebellious.
Both pleasurable.
They're both pleasurable, but they're not the same kind of pleasure. The pleasure that the parent gets from the really good kid doing something good is nice. The pleasure that the parent gets from the really rebellious kid doing something really good is awesome.
Right, because you have to tell him,
Right.
you're not saying anything when he hits the ball through the window.
Right.
That also doesn't sound right, like, it doesn't sound, like, what's like, so what, the person was sinful thoughts. And he's the one who gets more credit,
Yes.
the one who does things.
Comes to naturally.
Huh?
It comes to you naturally, it's not a struggle.
Imagine two people give you a gift. It's your birthday and two people give you a gift. Each one
Oh, not yet.
each one gives you a gift, $100. Wow, that's incredible, right?
Huh?
Except one guy works a minimum wage job and barely makes it, and he's giving $100. And the other guy is a billionaire, just sold his company, his high-tech company for $13 billion, and he's giving you $100. Whose $100 is more precious to you? Why? They're the same $100. They're the same $100. You can't buy any more with this guy's $100 than you can buy with that guy's $100.
But you can't take it for granted, the $100.
You can't take it for granted, so you appreciate both, but you definitely appreciate that one more than this one.
Yeah, it's
Same
different
thing.
value,
Yeah.
right?
because there's more.
The effort that you put on it.
So basically, what we say is better not be a tzaddik.
Right?
I mean,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
will
Don't
not,
make it too easy for God.
I will not take the blame for you understanding that. That's not what I said. No, what he said was, don't try to be a tzaddik because you're not going to make it. That's not
Okay.
your job.
Okay.
And
But
trying to saying, I wish I was a tzaddik is
Can get you frustrated.
is arrogance.
It's
Yeah.
like the
It's
famous
not you. It's not
story.
going to be you. Leave it alone.
Because we said before that tzaddik is the one that doesn't even have the thought of ever.
Right.
To begin to even think
It's
about
that
it.
famous story, I think it's with the Baal Shem Tov about the kid that came to the shul or Yom Kippur or something like that and just do a kukuriku.
Right.
And like everybody look at him as a crazy and you say like,
How did they call it, the story called?
Too much noise,
The Holy Hindik?
you know.
It has a name?
Bring
Yeah.
my head.
I didn't know it had a name.
didn't know that there is a name for that.
Yeah,
Boss.
the Holy Hindik, I think.
Veloy oid, not only that, not only should you not be upset when you find yourself having inappropriate or sinful thoughts, because that's just part of the challenge, that's part of your struggle, that's part of your job. Veloy oid elo, even more so, I feel with dvarim hamutarim legamri, even when you're dealing with struggles over completely, perfectly permissible things, nothing sinful, nothing negative, nothing bad here at all. It's all good. You just have to have breakfast like anybody else. It's something you're going to do. You need to do it, right? Kol ma she'odam zoiveach yitzroi. Every bit that a person can, literally means to slaughter the inclination, like offer the inclination, the tendency, the natural tendency. Offer that natural tendency up as a sacrifice to God. Afilu shakala, even for a very short moment. And your intent is to subdue the unholiness that is in the left side of the heart, as we talked about in the beginning of Tanya. To go in, for example, you want to eat. Anything wrong with eating? No.
Depends.
It depends.
Yes.
We're talking about things that are completely permissible. You're going to eat breakfast. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So you want to eat breakfast. But you delay your meal for an hour or maybe even less. And you study Torah in that time instead. That is the equivalent to this pushing away negative thoughts. It's the same thing. Kedisa Bigamar, like it says in the Talmud, the Talmud says that the fourth hour is the time that everybody gets to, that's meal time for the normal person. The Torah scholars would eat in the sixth hour. Why would the Torah scholars wait an extra 2 hours to eat?
Tastes better when you wait longer.
Because they would starve themselves or allow themselves to be hungry. Starving is a bit of an exaggeration. They would allow themselves to be hungry for 2 extra hours, likavonazu, for this intention, with exactly this thought. Although later they would study Torah all day, so it's not like if they push off their Torah study, if they push off their meal for 2 hours, that they're going to do more Torah study, more study today. They're going to do the same amount of Torah study anyways, but they delay the meal. Why?
But, like for example, Chabad drink coffee and eat
That's
something
exactly
before
what I
the
was gonna
prayer.
say.
So when you pray, you not think about food.
Okay, so that's different. Let's finish this first, and then we'll come back to that thought. But what he's saying is, you don't only struggle with your evil inclination when your evil inclination wants something forbidden, wants something evil. You struggle with your evil inclination even when your evil inclination just wants you to pay attention to yourself. So, for example, I'm hungry, I need to eat. The Beinoni, the righteous Beinoni, says to himself, you're hungry, so be hungry. Not a big deal. I'm going to eat when my mind tells me to eat, not when my stomach tells me to eat. That's called subduing the animal instinct in me. An animal, when it feels hungry, it goes and eats. What does a human being do? How is a human being different from an animal? The human being thinks it through, processes the thought, figures out what's necessary, and does what's right, not just what's instinctual. Even when instinctual is not bad. There's nothing wrong with eating breakfast. But there's something wrong with eating breakfast because I'm hungry. I'm hungry, I need food. It's okay, you can be hungry, it's not going to kill you. You have more important things to worry about than the fact that you're hungry. Like
Could kill you.
if you starve to death.
Yeah.
But if you wait an hour, have breakfast at 9:30 instead of 8:30, not going to hurt you. And as long as, if you're doing other silly things in that hour, then there's no reason to wait. You're not accomplishing anything. But if you can say, look, instead of, I'm feeling hungry right now, instead of eating right now, I'll leave that for an hour from now, a half hour from now, 15 minutes from now, and I'm going to read some Torah for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to go eat. You're training yourself to be in control of your instincts. That's subduing the animal instinct in you and subduing the unholiness and committing yourself to higher living.
There's something called Somali, where you leave the last piece of what you're eating, or
The Rambam says, don't eat until you're full.
Rambam.
Rambam says, don't eat until you're completely full. Stop eating when you're 80% full.
But it's not just from
That's
health
for health.
reasons.
But Rambam is talking about it mostly for health.
Okay.
You say something? So I like to eat not till I'm full because I stay optimistic I can get something else soon. I'm serious.
Whatever it takes. V'chein, and also in boiling piv miledaber dvarim shalibim esave ma'od ledabram me'nyani ha'olam. Also, if a person can seal their mouth from speaking things that are just worldly matters.
Yeah.
A bunch of people didn't hear that. V'chein behirudei machshavto, and also with thoughts in your mind. Afilu b'ma'at mize'er, even just a little tiny bit is kafia sitra achra lasata. If you can subdue the unholiness and push it downward, then you raise up the godliness, the holiness to a much higher level. Umikdusha zu, and from this holiness, nimshechas kedusha el yoina al ha'adam lamata. From this holiness that you cause above, great holiness is drawn down upon the person from above to below. L'sayoi, to help the person. Siyu arav, a great, tremendous assistance. V'otzum, and powerful. Lavedase yisbarich, in your service of God. V'zesh amrazal, and this is what the sages said. Adam mekadesh atzmai ma'at lemata mekadshin oisei harbi milamayla. A person who sanctifies himself a little bit here below is given great sanctification from above. Why? What does that mean? Mekadesh, sanctify yourself. The word holy means set apart, separate. That's what holy means. Something which is holy means it's set apart from everything else. So if you set yourself apart from the natural, physical, worldly instinct, then God sets you apart on a much higher, grander level, meaning if you bring a little bit of holiness into your life, God will bring much greater holiness into your life. Upirish v'skadishtem, and it says, you will be holy. Shetasu atzmechem kedoshim, you make yourself holy. It says v'skadishtem v'yisem kedoshim, you will make yourself holy and you will be holy. Kloimar, it means afsha be'emes ene kodesh muvdom esitra achra. This means you make yourself holy means naturally you're not holy, you're not separate from the unholiness in the world. You're a part of the unholiness in the world. But if you can draw yourself away from it, because the unholiness is alive and well in your heart, in your animal instinct, but you conquer your animal soul, and you sanctify yourself, then then you will in fact be holy. This means in the end, you will actually become holy, meaning separated from unholiness. Al yedei through the fact that you receive this extra holiness from above, and you are given assistance from God, to drive the unholiness out of your heart, ma'at, little by little by little, and slow and steady wins the race.
ולא לשמה בא לשמה.
למה
too.
מתוך שלא לשמוע?
That too.
Mhm.
But think about what he's saying. This is perhaps one of the most practical,
שלא לשמה בא לשמה.
actionable pieces of Torah psychology you'll find anywhere. And this really should be the basis of all psychology.
Mhm.
Understand what's going on in you. You're created to be a certain way. That certain way is you're going to have dual instincts. You're going to have conflicting instincts. Be intelligent about it. Right? Right.
Be intelligent about it. That's the part for some of us.
So actually elsewhere in Chassidus, it says that before what he describes here, there's a precursor to all this, which is to be able to, whatever it is you're about to do, stop and think about it and know what it is you're going to do before you do it. Try to stop yourself from doing anything instinctually. You know, you're walking through the kitchen and there's some cookies on the counter. You walk by, you grab one, you eat it, and you keep walking, and you don't remember. Did I have a cookie? Did I just eat a cookie? Don't ever do that.
Let me make sure I ate a cookie.
Yeah.
So, what it says is in Chassidus, it said this is very important because if you can just do that, not even saying don't eat the cookie, not eating the cookie, that's the next level. Deny yourself the pleasure. We're not talking about that. Now we're talking about just be aware of what you're doing. Stop for a moment, think about what you're about to do, and then do it. The reason that you do that is because at least then you're not an animal. You've introduced yourself into the realm of the human. Now, you want to become a better human, a more godly human, deny yourself the pleasure. But at least start with be a human, be intelligent. The animals walk around and munch all day. Don't do that. That's the first step. The second step is learn to deny yourself the pleasure, even if it means only postponing it for an hour. But the bottom line of the chapter is
Recognize that you have a choice.
recognize that you have a choice. And the reason you have a choice is so that when you make the right choice, it has value more than just the fact of the choice, but also the struggle that went into it and the appreciation that God has for your choosing him over yourself.
So when the waiter says super salad, just deny both, right?
So,
Say yes, please.
so for my question, so if Chabad, for example, say that you need to drink a coffee or eat something before you pray,
You don't need.
so when you pray, you don't think about the food.
So there's a tradition. I remember some community where they would have, by the Kiddush on Shabbos, they would have a kugel. What's a kugel? A kugel is a Shabbos dish, a food. So what they would do is on the special Shabbos of the year, there are some special Shabbos where you, instead of reading from one Torah scroll in the shul, you read from two Torah scrolls. Like if it's Shabbos, but it's also the first day of the new month, Rosh Chodesh, you read two Torah scrolls. So on those special Shabbos, they would have two kugels. Then there are very rare occasions, I think maximum twice a year, where you can have situation where you actually read three Torah scrolls on a Shabbos.
Because they are like double parasha and then
Double parsha and also a third. So on those Shabbos, they would have three kugels. So somebody said, 3 kugels on one Shabbos? Isn't that just gluttony? So the rabbi said, if when you're eating the kugels, you're thinking about the Torah, you're good. But if when you're reading the Torahs, you're thinking about the kugels, then it's gluttony, you're right. So yeah, there is the tradition. It comes from the story with the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe's daughter, who was very pious, would always make sure to pray before having her breakfast. And the doctor, she got very sick, and the doctors, not from that, she came down with some illness. And the doctors told her that in order to treat this illness properly, she has to eat first thing in the morning, probably blood sugar issue or whatever. So she started waking up even earlier to daven, to do her morning davening, so she can have breakfast at the time that the doctor instructed her to. And when her father found out, her father chastised her and said, it's far better to eat in order to daven than to daven in order to eat. based on that statement from the Alter Rebbe, we have the tradition that if you can't concentrate on your prayer because you're thinking about breakfast, have something to eat before you're davening, settle your mind, and then pray like a normal person and then have breakfast. But to say that that means that you're supposed to postpone your breakfast and then you postpone your davening and then postpone your, it's two different.
It's also Chabad Chassidut before the tefillah.
Yeah.
And then you ended up in 1 p.m.
So how do you do Yom Kippur if you're thinking about it?
Yeah, but you're doing the Shema on the time and everything.
By Yom Kippur, you're
Good
not
questions.
hungry to begin. I mean,
A lot of
you
Who would ever imagine